This is why apathy is one of the main symptoms of depression. The self-abandonment that is at the causal origin of apathy is also why apathy is a symptom of anxiety as well. The apathetic person does not feel safe with himself or herself because he or she has already demonstrated that they do not have their own best interests at heart. Most people who are apathetic have suppressed all trying and all striving within themselves because it was a dangerous thing to strive. They were either told that what they wanted or what they were striving for was selfish, or they were shamed for having that particular interest, or they were told that they couldn't achieve it, or that there was some sort of a limit to what they could achieve, and so they would fail. They were raised by discouragers, shamers, and defeatists. So they learned that it was not safe to try and not safe to strive. They learned that it was safe to conform to what was wanted of you, because then you're good. They also learned that it's safe to not strive, because if you never strive, you never have to fail and meet with abandonment, being criticized, or being worthless. It also must be said that those of us who struggle with apathy have an amazing ability to distract ourselves. When life feels hopeless and life feels meaningless and it doesn't feel like we can get out of this situation no matter what we do, then we have two options really. The first option is to take our own lives by suicide. The second option is to distract ourselves from our lives so that we aren't really living. We develop addictions. Some of these addictions are fairly overt, like to drugs. Others are covert, like to reading, to the internet, or to porn. Basically, we do whatever we can to sedate the emotion. So what should you do if you're apathetic? The very first thing is that we have to decide whether we're more committed to death or more committed to life. The reality is, if we're apathetic, we're actually committing passive suicide. Instead of living our entire lives stuck in this state of living death, we honestly have to decide whether we're going to commit to life or not. Let me remind you that death is not wrong, so make this decision based on the truth of what you want instead of what you think is right to want. If you decide you want to live, then you need to commit to life. Throw all of yourself in that direction. 2. Stop distracting yourself. Distracting yourself is a form of passive suicide. What you're essentially doing is making your life meaningless. You're not really living it. You're also, on an emotional level, doing the same thing to yourself as a parent does when they walk into the other room and get on the internet and distract themselves from a crying baby in the other room who's crying because it needs to be fed or loved or changed. When you feel tempted to distract yourself, turn in the opposite direction and give your attention instead to the feeling that you're trying to sedate. That feeling, that pain, needs unconditional love and care and attention. Shortcut your habits. If you have a problem getting addicted to watching TV and that's your route of distraction, then disconnect your cable service. Do whatever you need to do to make it so that you can't escape yourself, and you have to be present with yourself instead. 3. The emotional wound which needs help is despair. So all of your psychological work, or a great amount of it, and your emotional processing needs to be around that particular feeling and the belief patterns associated with it, which are creating despair. The problem about despair is that if you don't deal with the despair directly, then any action you take will still be coming from a place of despair, and it will not manifest positive results because of it. So if you continue with all these other steps that I'm about to give you without dealing with that root cause of despair, your attempts to solve this apathy issue will in fact result in despair. It will just be one more reason to feel like you can't do it, one more discouragement, one more reason that you feel hopeless. 4. Anger is your very best friend. You need to get in touch with your anger. You need to express your anger. You need to get angry. Anger is in fact the vibrational improvement upon powerlessness, and as despair is the root cause of apathy, and despair being, of course, powerlessness, anger is the improvement from that place. If you want to know more about anger, you can look up my YouTube video titled, How to Deal with Anger. Step 5. Start feeling your emotions. You have tuned out to your emotional guidance system a long time ago, so you have to tune back in. Start to feel for the sensations that are happening within your body as a result of your day-to-day life. For example, if you watch a movie, check in with yourself throughout the course of the movie, even pausing the movie to do it, to feel what sensations are occurring within your body. After you've felt these sensations without judging them, try to put words to the sensations like heavy, crushing, cold, buzzing, etc. Once you have become familiar with the sensations, try to identify specific feelings. To do this, it is helpful to carry a small feelings journal and set your timer to go off at intervals throughout the day. Whenever the timer goes off, turn your attention inside your body to see what you're feeling. Write down in your journal the sensations and also the name of the feeling if you can identify it. For example, buzzing, imploding, in the chest, anxiety. You also want to make use of situations in your life that evoke powerful emotions. So for example, say that your boss fires you. That's the perfect time to, instead of just adhering to the 10-minute intervals or hour-long intervals at which you have to check in with yourself, you can check in when that occurs, when you get fired, when something super extreme happens, to pay attention to what that feels like within your body. That needs to go in this journal as well. 6, you have to start following your positive emotions, and you have to start taking action as a result of following those emotions. This will be really rocky at first until you get your bearings back, and you will have to start trying new things. If you know what interests you or what causes you to feel positive emotion, you are way ahead of the game. It will be easier for you to think of things to do and actions to take, but for most people who struggle with apathy, they have lost touch with what even interests them and with what causes them to feel good. So if you're this kind of person, you have to try all kinds of new things. You have to see that action changes the way you feel and is capable of bringing about improvement. You aren't lazy, bored, unmotivated, or even apathetic. These are just symptoms. They don't define you as a person any more than a headache defines who you are. When you are feeling apathetic, movement is just what the doctor ordered. Now that may make you a little bit nervous because you don't know what way is right to take action. But you're not going to know which way is right because you're tuned out to your emotional guidance system. So any change, any movement in your life is actually going to be a benefit. You're going to have to be okay with the idea that taking action will give you more information emotionally about what's right for you or not. And if you keep making enough of those decisions, eventually you're going to be finding the right path for yourself. Some ideas about actions you could take are making yourself go to the gym, getting a job, volunteering for something, signing up for a class, moving to a different city, taking a shamanic journey, going on a retreat, letting a friend take you along for vacation, going to therapy, etc. The most important thing is that you have to shake your life up. Make little shifts and big shifts. Routine and monotony are your enemies at this point. Put yourself in situations that don't feed your apathy. Once you get more clear about what you actually do like, it will be easier to pick something and really focus on that thing. 7, notice positivity every day. You're in a space where you don't feel joy. You've lost your enthusiasm for life. You have largely negative focus. You have to remind yourself that there's actually value to this life. You do this by focusing on positive aspects. Past, present, and future. List your good memories. For example, one of my good memories might have been galloping a horse across a field. I want to put that down. But I also want to put down the elements that made it so that I did like that thing. So for example, galloping a horse across a field, I may like the freedom in that. I may like that feeling of being untouchable. I might like the camaraderie I felt with the horse. List things about now that you love. Maybe I love the warm feeling of my covers. Maybe I love the city that I live in, or at least the flowers I drive by on my way to work. Little things and big things. List things that you can look forward to, either 5 minutes from now, an hour from now, tomorrow, or a year from now. Maybe I'm looking forward to taking a bath. Maybe I'm looking forward to something I'm about to do this weekend. You want to put anything on this list that causes you to feel positive emotion. When you feel particularly stuck, go back to these lists and read them. It will re-inspire your commitment to life. 8. Look back over these positive aspects list, especially at the elements that you said you liked about those things. And try to figure out ways in your life right now that you could facilitate those particular elements or the expression of them. For example, if I liked the feeling of camaraderie I felt by riding a horse, I could either go ride a horse again, or I could attend a local seminar where I think like-minded people might congregate and I can talk to people there and form connections with them. A good amount of your life purpose is in fact revealed in the things you loved to do when you were young and the elements of things you love doing. 9. Approach this world with a beginner's mind. If you feel as if you have no hope, then you have given up. So my advice is to give up and start over from scratch. It's super beneficial to wipe the slate clean. That means start looking at your life as if you have never actually lived it before. It doesn't matter how many times you've eaten an apple. Eat your apple from the perspective that you have never done it before. I like to teach people to pretend that they're a space alien and they're on vacation on this planet, in my house or in my city or in my world. What would I appreciate about this? What would the experience really be like for me? Most importantly, what would I want to experience? And then I go do those things. Or I tell people who are doing this exercise to go do those things. You may have been married to someone for 5 years, but what is the experience of being around this person like if you have never met them before? If we feel despair, we can wipe the slate clean, start from scratch. Adopt the perspective that we are starting from square one all over again and getting to know this world for the very first time. 10. Don't expect yourself to try to believe that everything's going to work out and that everything's going to be okay and that you're going to be able to do what you want to do. It's awful to do that to yourself. And you're never going to be able to just cause yourself to feel hope when in fact you feel hopeless. So I want you to do these things for a different reason. I want you to do them because it doesn't matter whether it's going to work out. Anything is better than this state of stagnancy where you are right now. Anything is better than this living death. And be patient with yourself. It took years for people in your life to run you this far off course. You're not going to get back on course in one day. But each course correction you make gets you that much closer and that much closer. Don't quit just because you look up and notice you aren't there yet. It is safe to want. If you struggle with apathy, you have learned that it isn't. But remember that children who were raised in bigoted households believed it wasn't safe to interact with black people. So just because you have grown up believing something does not mean that it is true. You came to this life to want, and to follow your wanting into your expansion. You came to this life to feel, otherwise you could not know what you wanted. And your feelings are right. It is not your fault that people in your past invalidated your positive and negative feelings. It is not your fault that self-centered people in your past discouraged you and rejected who you were. You abandoned yourself to placate them. It was a genius strategy to do that, because it caused you to survive then, but it is also killing you now. You have every right to feel complete despair. Anyone in your situation would feel complete despair and has every right to feel like they could be in pain for the rest of their life. But it is also your choice from this point forward to succumb to that despair and prove them right, or to prove them wrong by taking hold